We're reading through the Bible in a year, and today is day 59. We're reading Numbers 11 through 13. And today we start off with a story about how the people complain to the Lord, and the Lord sets the camp on fire, and they name the place Taberah after he puts the blaze out for them, because the word Taberah means blaze. The people start complaining about what they're eating, and they say, all we have is this manna, this miraculous deliverance of bread. I mean, what a issue for your life that you have miracle bread every day. But they complain a lot. The Lord's anger burns against them. Moses gets upset too, but he's kind of mad at everybody. He's upset with the people, and he's mad at God. He's like, did I birth these people? Did I have to do it? Why me? Why, if you're going to treat me like this, just kill me now. It's a little dramatic. And so the Lord's response is, in verse 16, the Lord answered Moses, bring me 70 men from Israel, known to you as elders and officers of the people. Take them to the tent of meeting and have them stand there with you. Then I will come down and speak with you there. I will take some of the Spirit who is on you and put the Spirit on them. They will help you bear the burden of the people so that you do not have to bear it by yourself. And so the elders come and they consecrate the people and they start prophesying that. And it says that it was just a one-time thing, but it was like this moment of like prophetic utterance that establishes like, hey, the Holy Spirit really is on these guys. But two of the guys didn't show up. They're out in the camp and they're prophesying out in the camp. And Joshua runs up and he goes, Moses, they're prophesying over there. And Moses' response is, don't be jealous on my account. I wanted this. I wish everybody was filled with the Spirit. I wish everybody would prophesy and hear from the Lord, and that it wasn't just all on me to be the go-between here. So now the Lord starts to address the issue of food, and he says, okay, you want meat? I'll give you enough meat, not just for a day or 2 days or a month. I'll give you so much meat that you can't stand it. It's coming out your nostrils, and it seems like kind of almost a passive-aggressive response at first. But if we look at what the situation is, every time something is even a minor convenience for Israel, they're not turning to the Lord and trusting him. They do it just for a minute and then they just give up again, and they go straight from like, oh, we're following the Lord, to why are you bringing us out here to kill us? And so God's like, we're not playing this game over and over. You complain, I will give you what you're asking for, and you're going to hate it because you're not getting that. Just trust me, right? And so Moses even questions, like, how are you going to give that much meat? And God's like, hello, who are you talking to? And so he sends them quail, so much quail that they can't stand it. He says it'll come out their nostrils and they'll hate it. And they're overwhelmed with quail. It says, I mean, it's like 2 feet deep. Everyone's bringing in like literally a ton of quail. Then there's a plague that goes through, probably some sort of crazy avian bird flu or something, but like everyone starts getting sick and a bunch of people die. And they name the place Kibroth Hatava, which means graves of craving, because they craved meat and would not give up on begging and complaining against the Lord. It's a pretty intense story. Chapter 12 gives us a quick snippet into the dynamics of Moses' family. Aaron and Miriam, Moses' siblings, get jealous because Moses married somebody who's not even Israelite. And they're like, how come he gets to hear from the Lord? And how come he's so special? And why him? He's not even that great. And then we have this really weird verse because Moses is supposed to have written the Pentateuch, these books that we're reading right now. And it says in verse 3, Moses was a very humble man, more so than any on the face of the earth. I mean, I am God's most faithful, humble servant. Seems a bit much, but, but the Lord responds to Aaron and Miriam, and he's like, if I give a word to a prophet, he's got this, kind of weird glimpse and message that is hard to discern. But I speak directly with Moses. He's my most faithful servant. I speak directly with him, and I don't speak in riddles or anything else. Who are you? You guys are complaining against the one I've chosen when he's the one who's faithful. I mean, let's remember Aaron's the guy who formed the calf out of everybody's jewelry. So even though he's supposed to be the high priest, he's not really consistent with following Yahweh perfectly either. So then Miriam breaks out in leprosy and her skin starts rotting and falling off, and it's gross. And I mean, they compare it to like a dead baby. It's disgusting. And they cry out, they say, wait, we're sorry. And Moses says, please save her, heal her. And so God says, anybody else that's unclean for any reason would be cast out of the camp for 7 days until they were restored, and then they could be brought back in. So Miriam can do the same, and then she'll be all right. And so they have to wait. They can't even move out until Miriam is done with her 7-day purification. And then she comes back in and they move on to the next spot. Chapter 13 gets us into the plan to scout out the land of Canaan. Let's go look at the promised land and get ready to move in there and see what's before us. And so they send men, one from each tribe. And as you read through, if you're familiar with the story, you might know that Joshua and Caleb are going to be the 2 that give a positive report, and the other 10 are going to reject. We're not there yet. But as you read through the list, you might do what I did and go, wait a minute, Joshua wasn't in that list. He talks about a guy named Hoshea, son of Nun, from the tribe of Ephraim. And then after it gives the list of everybody, it says, these are the names of the men Moses sent out to scout the land. And Moses renamed Hoshea, son of Nun, Joshua. Why did he do that? Well, the name Hoshea means salvation, but the word Yehoshua or Yeshua, which is a combination of putting Yah or Yeh in front of it, which is a prefix representing the name of the Lord, and then Shua or Hashua is the combination of the Lord is salvation. This is actually where Jesus' name comes from as well. When he's going to be called Jesus, it's Yeshua, which is the Lord is salvation. So before they go in, Joshua, Moses' assistant, is renamed not just, hey, salvation, but the Lord is salvation. Every time his name is spoken, he is declaring it, or it is being declared that Yahweh is the sole source of salvation. So now they enter into the land and they scout it out and they find all this amazing fruit and the land looks perfect and it's fertile ground and everything's great. They bring back a big cluster of grapes and some pomegranates and some figs and some other things. And they come back and they give the report. They show off all the food and they say, look, the land is great and the fruit of the land is wonderful. You can see it here. But the people, they're tough. They're huge. They're strong. They look like they're ready to fight. They have fortified cities. There's no way we can take this. And Caleb's like, whoa, in verse 30, Caleb quieted the people in the presence of Moses and said, hey, let's go up now and take possession of the land because we can certainly conquer it. Because he's trusting in the Lord. He's not worried about those guys versus us. He's going, we got Yahweh. Like, what else do we need? But everybody else is scared and they go, we can't possibly stand up against these guys. Like, where they came from, like descendants of Anak and the Nephilim and all that. And it's all just these massive dudes. It'd be like me walking up and seeing a bunch of guys that look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm like, I can't do that. And they say, we look like grasshoppers compared to them. We're getting the same thing over and over, the same message in all these different ways. Are you going to trust God or not? Are you going to trust in the Lord? Are you going to trust in the Lord for salvation in all circumstances? Or will you cry out, turn away from him, give up on trusting him? God is trying to reinforce, like, I am taking care of you. I've got you. Rely on, trust in me. And Israel keeps going, no, we won't. We can't. How can we possibly trust you? What have you ever done for us in the last 5 minutes? Because we're forgetting everything you've done all of the time. And I think it's a good reminder for us when we read it. And if you're frustrated like I am reading it and go, why? How can you forget already again? What is wrong with you people? Just remember in your own life, you're not any different. We forget very easily what God has done. And it's really important for us to remember what he's done, to speak of what he has done, and to be seeking him all the time so that we're not just telling a story of 20, 30, 40 years ago of what God has done in our lives. We're not just having to remember something that happened way back when, but we're actively able to share what God is up to now. And that acknowledgement of what God is doing now is a really important piece of remembering what he's done in the immediate as well as in the past, and seeing the consistency of God's character. When we get to those moments where it feels like maybe there isn't a lot going on, don't overlook the manna. He has to keep saying that. I'm the God who brought you out of Egypt. Did you forget that part? How that went? But all they remember is the good times they had in Egypt. They remember food. They remember that we had somewhere to sleep. We weren't wandering around the desert and we weren't hungry, or we had different kinds of food. And God points out, I've been giving you manna. There's a daily miracle of God's presence and deliverance every single day for them. And there are little, wonderful, amazing ways that God is showing up for each of us every day. Don't overlook those things. That's what's getting me today. Can't wait to hear what you think. Let's talk about it in the comments. In the meantime, be rad for Jesus.